Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 5 of Endurance for Amateurs 2023 Season 3 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, or as most of us know it by Mosport. Tonight's race is brought to you by AlienAwards.net and Ninja Botanicals. 90 minutes on this simple but deceptively difficult track await these drivers in LMP3 and GT3 cars, and battles are close up and down the field coming into tonight. In the P3s, we saw Zach Nurnberger with a 50-second win that also has him in the driver's seat of the championship, but with Brad McCombs, Nick Terrell, Don McCloy, and Nick Paletti all within 7 points. Aaron Clayball won the GT3 overall at Watkins Glen, keeping himself in championship contention at 4th overall, where Terry Cougar Jr. now holds a reduced lead over Tyler Langenberg of 7 points. In the B class, Dan Real won last week, while Roger Schenck has a strong grip on the championship lead for now, while Richard Curry, Leonardo Elijah, and Real are within 3 points of each other for second place. As always, I'm joined in the booth by my co-host, Paul Skip. Paul, I've never been one to shy away from gushing about this track. It's my favorite track on the service, but you look at the track map and it doesn't look all that hard. What makes this track such a meat grinder sometimes?
Well, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Mosport, it's a fast, short track. You don't get any time to relax here. There's even a turn in the Andretti straight, and usually you're under attack coming out of Moss. Speaking of corners, there's 3 corners that I've always found particularly difficult here. That's turn 2, Clayton corner, turn 5, Moss's corner, the slow, blind right-hander leading you to Andretti straight, and then turn 10, White's corner. For some reason, that corner catches a lot of guys off guard. They'll get too much curb at the apex and they'll go shooting across the track and wind up in the middle right before start finish. Like I said earlier, tonight is all about endurance. You don't get a chance to relax. There's not really a good smooth straightaway. You got a lot of fast corners here. You're always under attack. It's going to be really tough on our drivers, but I think our P3 drivers are going to have a good time tonight with the aerodynamic package that the car has. We're just seeing some blistering corner speeds out of these guys. And then the GT3 drivers, they're going to have to mind their tires because they don't have that aerodynamic advantage. They're going to have to lean on those tires pretty hard and hopefully get them to go the full distance.
Yeah, and we can see there on the camera, and those first couple corners are a good example of having to lean on those tires, and may develop some more tire wear than we normally see, as there's some pretty fast ones around here. And as far as overtaking, it can be very difficult because there's really no hard braking zones anywhere in here. So it's going to be a tough challenge to make your way around. We'll probably be able to see some good defenses put up, but it's really going to be a game of mistakes. At least that's what it probably seems like it's going to turn out to be.
Right, and we're getting into the end of the season here for these guys. There's only 3 races left. Safety points matter. Safety points make or break the championship in this league. So it's going to be real important for our drivers to keep that in the back of their mind, that they need to, get a good, strong finish, but also try to carry as much of that safety bonus as they can.
Yeah, coming into this qualifying session, Nicholas Paletti had the fastest time in practice, and by a ton. I believe it was over a second that he had on the rest of the field. And Ken Huber, who just put himself there into provisionally first for the GT3s, was also the GT3 leader in practice, and his was by 5 or 6 tenths himself. So a couple guys really showing out strong in that practice session. Of course, it doesn't mean anything for qualifying or the race, but those 2 guys are on top as it stands. See, we have also Atticus Milton here. He does have an end-of-line penalty from an incident last race, so we will be seeing him start from the end of the field there. Ideally, there's we get the communication. It's the end of the LMP3 field. He does not have to start behind the GT3s. We've had some confusion with that before, but that is not the penalty. Right now, though, very close, as you see all those red gaps between drivers. So lots of close times on the field right now. And then looking at the overall gap, even then, I mean, the 6 times we've got in the LMP3 right now, all within 3 tenths.
Yeah, the racing is going to be really tight. Like I said, these P3 guys, they're going to love the aerodynamic package tonight. I mean, they can just almost go through all the fast corners flat out, and they don't really have to suffer as much from tire wear like the GT3 guys. I really think they're going to have a good time as long as they keep it on the track.
And Nuremberger there, able to put himself on provisional pole with a strong purple third sector. Was a little bit slower in that second sector, but made up for it in that final sector of the track to set the fastest of all the LMP3s so far. Christopher Craig then put in a time right behind him, just a 10th back. I mean, we got a couple laps on the board. I really don't, especially the LMP3, I have no idea how this is going to turn out here. Nicholas Paletti now slipped down to 4th, and he has to respond.
Well, maybe not. You know, Nick has not had the best luck from pole, so maybe he wants to kind of maybe start back there and try to avoid that initial big accident.
Yeah, that is a good point. It has been a couple rough races for Nicholas Paletti despite having that pace in qualifying, but regardless, due to staying in those races, of course, benefiting from being able to use some faster pairs, he's still in this championship. Like I said, he's just 7 points back from the leader in Zachary Nuremberger, but 4 drivers lie in front of him as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to overcome, but it can be done in 3 races.
After this race here in Canadian Tire, we finish up with Road America and Road Atlanta, 2 other American mainstay tracks that should offer plenty of challenge. Road America, a bit different than this one, quite a bit longer, but this one may involve some congestion between the classes, really.
Yeah, what we saw in practice was that the fast GT3s were kind of getting, put in bad spots by, slower P3s. They're obviously, everybody's racing. No one was doing anything malicious or anything, but it's just that close between the lesser P3s and the very top GT3 guys.
Yeah, like you had kind of hinted on earlier, and especially I think as tire wear starts to come into play, it'll be a greater difference between the two. But it does seem like with the type of turns that we have here at Motorsport, the LMP3s have a pretty distinct advantage over the GT3s, and I don't think we'll see as much intermingling as we've seen at a couple tracks before.
I think the hardest part they're going to have to deal with is, around the pit cycle when everybody gets all mixed up and mingled up like we saw at Long Beach or Watkins Glen. That's when the real work's going to have to start for these guys.
For a moment there, all 10 A drivers were ahead of the rest of the drivers in the B class. Dan Real there popping himself up a couple spots to put himself in 8th overall, however. A little bit of an improvement for his position. And these A-class drivers certainly showing out, how they got there.
Yeah, the top 7 A guys are within 9/10 of each other. This is going to be real exciting.
Yeah, with a minute and a half left, most drivers have already put in their times. As you can see, it's just barely over a minute long on the track, even in these cars here. So most drivers have completed their laps already. There's a couple still on track. I'm not sure if they're over time or if they still have an official one to come in. Tim Thompson here, driver on screen. I believe that he still has at least 1 lap that he can complete here. He'll only have time for 1. We'll see where this places him. Yellow in the first sector. And second sector, let's see where that puts him compared to his previous lap. Another yellow sector, so may not be an improvement time here for Tim Thompson. Ryan Jeevan, 2 greens, and barely has a time on the board. Just has the 1 time, I believe, and I don't think that was exactly what he wanted. So no surprise to see an improvement on the pace so far. Let's see where this places him. Currently in 8th, trying to catch up to Don McCloy, who's actually in 7th right now. Yeah, big improvement. Wasn't able to claim another position, but a whole second faster than his previous lap. So 8th place there for Ryan Jeevan, and I don't think that we have any more times that are going to be able to be put in, because with 40 seconds left, I don't even know if James Foreman actually has a lap to do here, and it does seem slow. Yeah, it's slow here on this lap that he's on. So with qualifying wrapping up, we will verify these results, make sure that we have everything correct, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, and we are back looking at our results for this qualifying session. Zach Nuremberger with the first pole in A class there, leading the field with a 1:11.711, with Christopher Craig just a 10th back in second place, Paul Boyle third, Andrew Neri fourth, and Nicholas Paletti, fastest time from practice, fifth in qualifying tonight. Daniel Pelotas behind him in sixth with Don McCloy, Ryan Jeevan, and Atticus Middleton rounding out the field. Again, Atticus Middleton with a penalty start from the back of the field. Anyway, so that is not why. That is why he didn't put a time in.
And in our GT3A and B class qualifying results, at the top step, we've got Ken Huber with a 1:15.361, followed pretty closely by Tyler Langenberg, then Terry Calgar Jr., Adrian Garcia, Andrew McMurray, Jeff McDonald in sixth, seventh place, Aaron Claybaugh, and our GT3B pole sitter, Daniel Real, followed by Kevin Berquist, Christopher Newby, Daniel Hingley, Richard Curry, James Forbin, Abby Vesuvium, Vernon Margheim, Leonardo Elijah, Tim Thompson, and I missed the last guy because the thing went away. Oh, yeah, Keith. Can't forget about old Keith.
Yeah, interesting. Keith didn't get a time in there. Wonder if it was just a couple laps that didn't get done. I didn't notice if he had gone out on track or not. Not an enviable place to start from the back of the field, but it'll be a challenge for him to make his way through. So we're about to see these drivers do a full pace lap here. Andrew McMurray there in fifth, real good placement. I mean, the top four guys, names that we see do well week in and week out: Ken Huber, Tyler Langenberg, Tyler Carrick Jr., Adrian Garcia-Villo. We expect those names. And Andrew McMurray, this is a great qualifying position. He had a really good race in Sebring, but stands right now 15th overall in the points, and certainly has a lot to gain if he's able to maintain where he's at.
Yeah, well, he is a local boy, so we kind of expect him to do well here, being from Canada and all.
A little bit of advantage. I mean, we saw the advantage that it gave Eric Claybaugh last week for sure at Watkins Glen. It's the drivers now getting going on the racetrack, and this is going to be a 90-minute race that's set up for him, and it should be a pretty interesting one. We'll expect a couple pit stops for both classes, and hopefully not too many fatal incidents here, but it is almost unavoidable at this track, especially on these cold tires. And in these first couple turns, it is going to be difficult to keep it stuck.
Yeah, the cold tires is one thing, but this course in particularly, the grass is right where you don't want it to be. There's zero runoff at this track. I mean, you got a little sliver of concrete outside of the curbing at Moss, and that's about it. It's really all about using all the track that's available to you here.
Yeah, a couple blind apexes that you have as well throughout this track, where you either being long turns where you just can't see around, or what they're about to come through right now, the whole Moss complex, which is this pretty wild downhill fast section that can be pretty intimidating, especially if you're battling someone heading into there. So Zach Nuremberger, obviously they're going to be starting single file. We'll certainly hope to be single file still as they head through that section.
And that's a great shot right there. That kind of demonstrated a disadvantage of the P3s. The apex of Moss there that we just saw, that's right behind the massive A-pillar in the P3 cars the whole time. So you just kind of got to know it's there and do your best.
Yeah, it may be difficult to really get around the GT3s as well there. The LMP3 is going to be a lot faster in that section, but there's nowhere for a car to get around. They're going to have to wait until after that whole complex to make a pass down this sort of straight. It's called the Andretti Straight. It's not really all that straight, but it's the closest thing you get on this track.
Yeah, and it's really like it's a big attacking point, the Andretti straightaway. I mean, the GT3 guys are going to be under constant pressure from either their own class or the P3 class, because it's really the only place to get anything done here.
As they come up to these final few corners here through the S's and through White's corner, Zach Nuremberger is going to lead the field into turn one here at a return to Motorsport. Rounds the corner, waiting for the green flag, and it is a go. Cars accelerating. Zach Nuremberger, championship leader, will lead this race into turn one for these LMP3s as Ken Huber leads the GT3s back just a few more seconds. down into turn 2. Very difficult corner. This is the one we can expect maybe some incidents as they push out a little bit wide. All these LMP3s staying pretty glued to the ground. And now making it through the long right-hander of Quebec and coming up to the very difficult section of Moss. Luckily not dealing with too much traffic behind. He's got 0.8 of a gap on Christopher Craig. Very close in the GT3 field, closer. And Tyler Langenberg keeps it just 0.3 away from Ken Huber.
You always got to keep an eye on...
Oh, Zach Nurnberger. Zach Nurnberger is down in last place. Not that it takes that much as he is off track here in the Moss corner. We'd just taken away from him, and his entire front, the whole front of the car is gone. That is going to be an immediate pit for repairs. And pole position continues to be cursed in the LMP3 class this season.
Boy, I'd say so. That looked like a really hard hit.
And that's what you're talking about. The grass is right there. If you go off, there's nothing saving you. There's no runoff. And you can see, I mean, he recognized the loss of traction pretty early, but the car is just not going to stop or turn on that grass.
No, it's not. And like I said, you know, Moss is so tricky, and our P3 drivers can barely see it as it is. It's just, it was just a bad scenario for Zach.
So that means Christopher Craig is now our leader in the LMP3 class with Andrew Neri right behind him. Nicholas Paletti has made up one position on his teammate Paul Boyle, as well as the position, of course, gained from Zach Nurnberger there heading into the pits.
Well, in practice, we saw Nick Paletti putting in some really fast lap times. I really do think he was just kind of laying back, trying to avoid that pole position curse.
Yeah, this was Paletti. Everyone avoiding that incident, and Paletti taking it around the outside of his teammate Paul Boyle there, down the back straight. So that's how he got that position to move his way up to third. And he is right there in that picture as all of the top 3, 4 in this LMP3 class continue to stay close through this final sector. There's just not a lot to separate yourself in pace on this track. I mean, provided you survive it, it's just difficult to be a whole lot faster than anyone else.
There's really no room here to, like, you know, kind of vary your line a little bit, like coming up into Clayton corner here. You know, there's only one line on the exit where the banking's good enough to hook you up, or else you'll run wide out into the dirt. You just got to deal with it. You got to keep the pressure on and hope your opponents make mistakes.
Further back in the GT3 field, Chris Newby here is in 10th place, trying to catch up to Kevin Berquist. Nearly lost Kevin Berquist from this race during that warm-up period. Was able to rejoin, luckily, pretty quickly. As we see some positions changed up front, as looks like maybe an incident for Daniel Plotis as he lost a couple positions. Nothing coming up as far as being off track, so maybe just avoiding a spin there. Quite a clean start to this race outside of a couple minor mistakes, but no contact between two cars, at least that we've caught in the action so far. And there have been some gaps starting to pull in this GT3 field, as you just can't follow all that close through Moss. It kind of necessitates a little bit of a stretch out of the field, at least when you're talking outside of small groups being able to stick together.
What we're seeing, is all the drivers that are kind of in that same kind of pace are just sticking to each other. Like you got Huber, Langenberg, and Calgar and Garcia out front, just kind of legging out away from everybody, or at least trying to. And then you got, you know, the mid pack guys that are kind of bunched up. You really don't want to get that aerodynamic load taken off your car in a few of these corners. So it is a good strategy to kind of give each other some space and just, you know, get this first part of the race out of the way, get the jitters out of the way, and then, you know, get your head down and drive.
Yeah, all of the top 15 A and B class drivers in GT3 have not changed positions since the start. So Keith Roycroft up 2 from starting in the back, making his way around Tim Thompson, Leonardo Elijah. Other than that, just no opportunity for any of these guys to make a move. Very mistake-free, especially for the GT3 field. And it just goes to show how difficult it can be to make a move. But a little bit wide there for Paul Boyle, as it looks like he's going to get passed by Don McCloy heading down the... No, he's got a little bit of a fight. He's going to be on the outside. Don McCloy down the inside. He takes the position for now. Further up, Nicholas Paletti's trying to get the position on Andrew Neri. And I don't think, he was not able to do it. Had to back out of it, but certainly pressuring the areas. It gives Christopher Craig a little bit of a cushion that he didn't have before. Nürnberger also had set the fastest LMP3 time, but he has now just caught up to the back of that GT3 field, further increasing his woes as he's going to have to fight through that field. And they're not going to try to make it hard for him, but he's going to be slower going through there. Oh, Dan Real has had an incident, and it looks there. He's going slow, has some damage to the front left of the car. He may have gone wide in turn one. Let's see if we can figure out what happened here for him. Turn two.
Yep, that grass will get you every single time.
I mean, really, though, given the speed in that corner, that's probably the preferred result, as opposed to what often happens is just understeering, and then you just can't stop, and you fly all the way into that wall on the outside. It's not a happy result for Dan Real, but better than what it could have been, in all honesty.
I was going to say, I think I rolled a Corvette over there a couple years ago or a year ago.
Yeah, very easy to head out wide. We haven't seen anybody do it yet. Have seen a couple people kick up some dirt there. We saw Paul Boyle lose that position to Don McCloy earlier, and one of the GT3s may have been Kauger or Langenberg there doing that on the exit as well.
That's just how tight the racing is. I mean, we saw just a little bit of an off track, nothing catastrophic coming out of turn 10, and it cost Paul the position.
Tim Thompson stopped on track after this incident here. Oh, that's a pretty big hit.
Yeah, that's a race ender.
Yeah, maybe able to limp it to the pits. It does look like he has drive, at least. Wasn't sure if he did, because he was stopped on track there for a while after the S's, but in the pits right now. We'll see if he gets that car repaired. Meanwhile, LMP3 field continues to stay close, as all of the top 5 drivers are within 3/10 of each other, basically. Andrew Neri, is he actually out? Did he just lose connection to the... I don't see... Okay, he's back. He may be having some connection issues here, as he is blinking out here. It's not just on my leaderboard there. He may have some issues.
Yep, he's definitely having connection issues.
As it is, though, running quite well. Second place has been trying to push Christopher Craig here for that first place, as he's defended from Nicholas Paletti behind. And the cars just have to file in, single file through there, as they want to make a move on the exit, but just so difficult to make. Nicholas Paletti, though, has a bit of a shot here, 10th and a half, and a little bit of draft down this back straight. As we see, he's trying to still stay behind.
Yeah, he's not going to get it done into the S's.
Yeah, nowhere to go there, unfortunately. Good positioning for Andrew Neri as he took the inside. That's really where you want to be, trying to make the move, and he occupied that spot early. The GT3 field, not quite as close in some sections. However, back here right now for the 10th through 13th places are all within a second of each other. That's Bergquist, Curry, Foreman, and Real.
There's just a lot of close racing going on. It's incredible.
A lot of clean racing so far as well, and nice to see a lot of survivors so far, but we have a lot of race to go. 9 minutes in, obviously 90 to complete here, and it does look like Real's damage not affecting his pace too much. He hasn't really slipped through the field much more than what he lost just from the incident itself. You see his view up ahead of the almost move by James Foreman as well.
I was going to say, with damage like that on Daniel Rial's car, it's one of those choices you got to make. You know, if you're not losing a whole lot of time to it, you're going to lose a whole lot more time going to pit to get it fixed. So,
and obviously with how soon, and that was nearly a spin for Richard Curry. Nice save, but he loses a couple positions. Should be able to stay ahead of Abhi Vishwasham there, but that was a close moment for him as he saves that car.
That was a good save.
A little bit of heating up the tires, and that's Zach Nürnberger there making his way through the field, as he did have another incident a little bit earlier as well. Don't think that he got any damage from it, but this happened while he was trying to pick his way through the GT3 field. Oh, wow. Actually does hit the wall.
Ouch. A Moss again.
He may have got away with that one. That is a pretty soft tire wall depending on how you hit it. And I don't even see anything that happened to his car, at least from these shots. Daniel Hingley falling back. That is Daniel Hingley there on the exit of the S's. We've already saw an incident there for Tim Thompson, and he is stuck waiting for every single car to go by as he's stuck on the outside. Nothing he can do.
It's such a tight course. You don't really have a choice, but, hats off to Daniel for waiting like a professional.
This is what happened to Hingley here. As he came around the S's, and it just looks like on that left hand, just stepped out of nowhere.
It's real easy to do in those fast corners.
If I didn't know better, I would have said that looked like a money shift there. It's very interesting to see that in a sequential car, but just overstressing those tires a little bit after a pretty tough turn in the right-hander. It just starts to loosen up a bit in that section. And we'll have to see if maybe that was a BMW issue that Aaron Claybaugh will deal with as well, or something he's going to be able to avoid. Right now, though, LMP3s, Atticus Middleton himself even here, everybody within just tenths of each other. Quite great running for everybody in this LMP3 field. It's tight all the way up and through, and Dale Plota's not even far back, visible in that picture there in 8th place.
It is crazy to see these guys running this tight, even 11 minutes into the race. I find it amazing.
There's Paletti's pulling out to the side. He wants the inside. Again, Andrew Neri denying the inside line, and he may be able to make a move on Christopher Craig. He backs out. Nicholas Paletti sends his way through. Andrew Neri stuck in that awful situation of having the speed to defend but not to get ahead of the guy in front of you, and he loses out on the momentum. Nicholas Paletti now into 2nd place and looking for another 1st place finish here as he just has a couple tenths to make up. Aaron Claybaugh lost a couple positions there. Let's see what happens to Nicholas Paletti's teammate. Jeff McDonald right behind him into Moss, it looks like.
Just got out in the dirt.
Yeah, same as what we saw from Nürburgring, but luckily a slower car, so not leading it into the wall there.
It was real fortunate Aaron was able to keep the car under control and kind of get it turned around away from the wall.
Now Dan Plotis had, for just 1 second there, had caught up to a second, and we had all 8 drivers who haven't made a pit within a second of each other. The entire field 13 minutes into this race. Still close there, 1.2 seconds back, but it was certainly a sight to see. GT3s, a lot of guys still struggling to make any moves. There's, Nicholas Paletti there, not struggling to already make a move for first. He's got 1st place. He is ahead. Nicholas Paletti is the new race leader. Right when they come up to some GT3 traffic ahead, that is a valuable position to have.
That was a power move by Nick. He just blew by Craig like he was standing still.
Yeah, it did not take. It took him a long time to size up the pass on Neri, and he was able to make that move on Christopher Craig there on his pretty much his 1st attempt. So great move for him there, and does not have to worry about making it. Don McCloy may have just had an incident. Don McCloy here, as this field's all close. Out of nowhere, just losing control.
I think he caught that bump that's kind of up there at the top of the hill of Clayton Corner there. We know these P3 cars, they don't like to be bumped around too much.
That's to the pits for Don McCloy, a tow to the pits as well. So that is a lot of time lost regardless of the fast repair. So unfortunate result for Don McCloy, who was running well there, and is a guy who, as I mentioned at the top of this broadcast, is in contention for the overall championship, especially with Brad McCombs and Nick Terrell not being here, and Zach Nürnberger being out of the picture in this race currently, with him down in, he's at least back up to 8th place, but that really hurts Don McCloy. It's a Paletti fighting through some tough GT3 traffic here and defending his 1st place. Meanwhile, at the GT3 field front, Terry Kiger Jr. has kept it close to Tyler Langenberg for a good amount of time. He had it down to just a few tenths, while Ken Huber continues to step away at the front of the field, now with a 3.6 second gap on Ken Huber, or on Tyler Langenberg, sorry.
It's interesting to see the Ferrari just legging it out on the Porsches, which has really been the dominant car other than at Sebring. I wonder if that's like Ken told us at the end of Sebring was, the Ferrari likes to stretch its legs. I wonder if that's not an advantage here.
This was Tyler Langenberg and Terry Geiger Jr. just this last lap fighting as they head down into Moss Corner, actually side by side. I said it couldn't be done, but it did. Tyler Langenberg able to maintain that position through that challenge.
Both drivers kept it clean. Love to see that.
Angineri as well just made the move on Christopher Craig. Spent a while unable to do so and then lost the position, but now has been able to reclaim that position all the way on the outside. Oh, he does not keep it. I didn't see the notification that Christopher Craig was still ahead, so he tried to send around the outside. It was a little bit of a Larry move.
That's a real tough place to pass on that first S turn like that on the outside. It's so hard to get it done there.
Meanwhile, in the LMP3 field, as far as our drivers in the race still, we do have Zach Nuremberger still here. Ryan Jeevan has made a pit, I believe, but Don McCloy out of this race after that incident, so not worth the tow for him. He is out of this race and will probably be a drop week for him.
Yeah, that's always tough to see.
GT3 field right at the back, all top 8 drivers in the A class, and Kevin Berquist rear in this field here, very close behind to Aaron Claybaugh and Chris Newby, as they have a pretty big gap to Andrew McMurray, who's still there in that 5th place position. Newby himself up 4 spots too, started in 10th and has made his way through the field, but he is in a little bit of a challenge here from these 3 drivers behind.
Well, they're going to have a hard time getting around him, too. Like we've been saying, this track is super hard to pass on. I mean, even with Aaron kind of there putting the pressure on him, there's still no real place for him to go.
Yeah, especially in that section of the track. I mean, this is where we saw that replay of Langenberg and Cowger side by side as Cowger was trying to make the move, and it just didn't work out for him, and ended up losing a good amount of ground. However, he's back there. He's back. As I say that, Terry Geiger Jr. pulling to the inside of the S's, and he's got the move done for now, as Langenberg's going to have the inside of the next S. Side by side, a little bit of contact, no damage. Now coming through whites, and Langenberg's going to try to take it the long way around. I don't know if it's going to work out for him. They're going to still be fighting down into turn 1. Oh, and big contact that time as Terry Geiger Jr. moves out a little bit too far to the left. Both drivers making it out, and they're back to single file as Langenberg's going to try to get back that spot.
Yeah, good on Tyler for hanging on to it going into turn 1. That was kind of a hard hit, and it could have ended his race, but it didn't. He hung on.
Yeah, unsettled the car just a little bit. You could hear him lift as that's Daniel Hingley off in the background. Does not look to have any damage to the car, so he should be rejoining the track here. Yeah, is back on track. We also have Nuremberger there into the pits, so I don't know if maybe he got some more damage that we didn't see. But that was Nuremberger with the second pit stop, and not quite sure what the cause of that one there was. Langenberg close, but does not look like he's going to be close enough to make a move on this lap. And so far, this has been the only really reliable passing opportunity is down this back straight.
Yeah, it's all about how fast you get out of Moss. If you can get a run on the guy ahead of you, this is really the only easy passing opportunity on the whole track.
Paul Boyle trying to pass down the back straight. Nowhere to go as they have the GT3 traffic ahead. He's going to go on the inside, and he gets the spot on Christopher Craig. Wonderfully managed in that traffic as he makes his way by and even is able to pull out a little bit of gap as Christopher Craig there gets slowed down a little bit more than Paul Boyle was. Now Paul Boyle setting his sights on Angineri ahead, just about a second ahead of him. Dan Real just in that background of that, we saw Dan Rail making up that spot on Abhi Vishvasham. Still has that damage to the front left of the car, not affecting his driving as he makes up a position. You can see the congestion as they make way through here. And that's Nicholas Paletti up there at the front of that group as well. So luckily able to make it through at the absolute perfect time to not get slowed down in that Moss corner. And you can see in the timing how that's done for him, as he now has a 3.4 second lead on Andrew Neri for second place. So it's looking good for Paletti so far. Still a lot of race to run, but we're 20 minutes in.
Right, and that's what hurts the most about this track as a faster class is when you get into situations like Andrew Neri's in, you got nowhere else to go. These guys are racing for position 2. You just gotta take it when you can get it.
Yeah, that right there, though, the lap difference between Paletti and Neri on that specific lap, 2,000ths difference, 1:12.602 and a 1:12.604. So certainly able to keep it competitive, Neri, but it looks like he's lost some time on this lap, and you can see it's because of what he's had to go through here with this traffic. He's already lost a couple seconds trying to make his way through this very dense midfield in the GT3 field.
Yeah, all the tight racing that was really entertaining probably isn't entertaining for the P3 guys.
Yeah, a little more frustrating for them, I imagine, but handled well and through safely. And he doesn't have that, he didn't lose a spot to Paul Boyle behind. Paul Boyle is struggling just as much as he has, making his way through that tough traffic. I think that Paletti was just able to get a really perfect time as he now comes up on a couple more cars here. Another nicely timed move here as he gets the acceleration out of the final corner. I mean, obviously some of this is set up, and he sets the fastest lap for the LMP3s with 11.6. And then Andrew McMurray, currently in 5th place, but catching up to Garcia there in 4th, has now set in the fastest lap for the GT3s. And that's that right there on screen. And you can see the gap between the two has certainly shrunk as he's challenging to get into that top 4.
Yep. If he keeps his head down and his nose to the grindstone, he can probably get it done on Adrian there.
You can just hear how long they're on the throttle through that corner, and just pushing it as far as they possibly can. Of course, you get that advantage of the braking power when you're heading downhill, and you've got that compression zone. So that's really the name of the game in that corner, is to maximize that compression in the braking event. But once you start heading back up the hill, because it is a dip, you head back up, that's when you lose that downforce, and where we've seen some drivers go out wide. But it's been really clean for the last 10 minutes or so. Really no big incidents that we've seen.
Yeah, other than self-inflicted errors, yeah, I mean, that's really all we've seen is, the deadly grass up right there on the other side of the white line. The racing's been spectacular so far.
Claybaugh trying to snag that position from Newby. Claybaugh in the position that he started in this race, but was passed by Newby earlier and has kept it close here, but I don't think he's really made a send for it yet. But this is as close as he's been in this race. He couldn't quite really be much closer. We saw him get close a few laps ago in this corner, and there's just no way around. Where's he going to go?
Yeah, it's just so tight. Just so tight. I mean, they're almost at a loss of words sometimes because, these guys, they get great runs on each other and then they can't do anything with it. It's just heartbreaking sometimes.
Andrew Neri showing out on my screen. I imagine the connection issues that he was having earlier, and hopefully this doesn't end up removing him from the session, but very well could with the severity that we've seen so far. That's Nürnberger makes his way through the field. These are for position as well because of that early incident, so these drivers not getting as much notification because they'll not be getting any blue flags for those passes.
They don't have to let them through. They got to get through on their own. There's no rule saying you got to let them pass.
Very gentle on the throttle application in that final corner for Claybaugh. Does you have to wonder if fuel strategy is going to come into play on this track. It often does on tracks where it's difficult to pass, because the best way to pass when you can't do it on track is to do it with a fuel or tire strategy. But now with tires happening at the same time as fuel, it's really not much of a strategy anymore, and it really relies a lot more on the fuel.
Well, if we're talking about fuel, I think the driver to watch, as we've seen before, who one stopped Watkins Glen, is Tyler Langenberg. Whatever he's doing is probably going to be the fuel strategy to do.
James Foreman taking it around the outside into Moss Corner. I don't know how he had such a run there, but already well ahead of Kevin Berquist. I think Berquist maybe just a little bit wide there, and Foreman taking that opportunity. As we look at our field, we do have a couple GT3 drivers out of this race. Dale Hingley is out, and Vernon Markheim out of this race as well. So I don't think we caught what happened to Vernon Markheim exactly. Could be this incident here, as we watch mounting that curb.
That's weird.
And that was a quick reaction to going off track there. He was done with it, and Markheim out of this race. So that is a no finish for him, as he's raced in both the GT3 and the LMP3 so far this season.
The iRacing feed is saying they both manually disconnected, so they decided to leave the race.
I don't know how he did it so fast. That's the fastest I've ever seen, I think. But right now, the gaps are starting to grow in both fields. Some mistakes up in the LMP3 field and some early pits have spread that out a little bit. And the GT3s just kind of slowly become a little bit more stratified. But these three guys here, closest guys on track between both classes, as James Foreman really makes some gains there in the braking zone. And these three guys all are competing for that 7th, 8th, 9th position right now. 6th, 7th, 8th.
Yeah, Claybaugh's definitely putting the pressure on Mr. Newbie there, and he's all over him.
Yeah, Newbie has not flinched a single time so far. We've seen Claybaugh all over the rear bumper of Newbie's Porsche, and he hasn't reacted at all. Has not made a single mistake, so he's kept it quite cool in that cockpit there.
Yeah, a regular Iceman.
A little bit wide for Claybaugh, able to keep it on track. We have a couple pits further back. Tim Thompson in the pits, Dan Real taken into the pits as well. We are close to 30 minutes in, so I don't know if that's the preferred strategy, but he had that damage to the car, and he is on schedule at least to be able to not make any more stops than anyone else. So coming in to get that repaired. Well, that's well, that being said, though, Real had pit on the previous lap. From my timing, though, that he pit on lap 21 and lap 22, so potentially a penalty that he had, speeding in the pit lanes or something. I mean, he's back out there on track, so I'm not sure what happened, but he's back out there and on the track, 15 seconds back from Elijah in 13th.
Man, those penalties hurt, especially at a short track like this. That's not what you want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, a 40-second penalty, if that's what it was, which that would be what you'd get for the speeding, I would imagine. That's basically a lap. That's almost a full lap with 1:11, and you take into account the fact that you got to come into the pits. That is a pretty killer penalty. It's going to put you on a different lap than your competitors. So we get Dale Plotis there trying to make his way through some traffic. Aaron Claybaugh letting him through, but he was not able to get by Christopher Newby. He's going to have to wait all the way through this final section here, which will certainly give a little bit of a boost to Newby, so he didn't have to slow down heading into there.
Looks like it gave a little bit of a boost to Mr. Foreman too back there. You know, he caught up with Aaron quite nicely.
Yeah, just unfortunate timing for Claybaugh. Looks like he's going to be able to keep his position for now at least, but he's going to have to claw back a few more tenths to get back up to that position, that sixth place position of Newby. Meanwhile, Paletti, last lap, putting in the fastest lap again, another purple lap for the LMP3s and had what it was. I was about to say had a 10-second lead on Andrew Neri. It is now a 12.6-second lead. Aaron Claybaugh, though, on the inside of Newbie, and Newbie not really doing much to fight it. Hadn't flinched all race, but also not reacting too strongly to that attempt there and kind of letting him take that position.
Looked to me like perhaps Mr. Newbie got a little bit off of the line going into turn one, and that was just a little mistake that Aaron needed.
Yeah, Claybaugh already announcing his intentions by putting himself inside, and Newbie giving him plenty of space, but just not an easy corner to try to take the outside line around. I think once Claybaugh had established himself on the inside, it kind of was game over at that point.
I'd agree.
So we'll see if he's got obviously James Foreman pressuring him behind, and we'll have to see if that affects how he reacts coming into turn one around this next lap. If he swoops inside to defend that inside. I mean, obviously Foreman just saw it work there and may try to do the same.
I can't help but wonder what the GT3 tires are doing. We're about 30 minutes into the race. You know, that they've got to be getting kind of worn out. They got to be getting a little heated up. And I do know that the Porsche does suffer a little bit more from tire wear than, like, say, the BMW or the Ferrari.
See Foreman experiencing a little bit of aero wash there in these high G corners as he just pushes out a little bit wide, but able to grip there through turn two. Got Ryan Jeevan making his way through on the traffic, so he's going to break that up for just a couple corners here. But again, he's going to be able to get by. It looks like right before the Moss corner, not able to get by. Meanwhile, Jeff McDonald back there in the pits, interested to see if that's a on-schedule pit stop or not. See how the car looks. Car looks, well, he could have just got repaired, but car looks fine. He got going. It was a short stop, so this may be his strategy here as one of the first guys to come into the pit stops on earnest, at least from what we're looking at.
Yeah, he could be running the divide the race evenly strategy. You know, we've seen it work. We've seen it fail. Who knows?
Yeah, especially given the fact that there was some, it's just so difficult to get around some other guys. If he thinks that he has that pace and he was getting slowed down with where he was at in the racetrack, then he could definitely benefit from some clean air if that is what he got fed into, and could also benefit just from having more laps to try to make up on the drivers he's competing with in the virtual pit stop game. Meanwhile, oh, wow. Okay, so I was about to, as you can see there on the timing, didn't mention it initially, Nicholas Paletti there, down to 3 seconds. And this incident just happened previous lap. Paletti make his way around to Leonardo Elijah, and a collision as they head around the outside. I think Elijah's just not able to keep it pinned there, and shockingly, Paletti keeping it out of the wall.
Oh, that's such a rough place to go off track right there, but hats off to Paletti for hanging on to it and keeping it through the grass.
Yeah, he lost 12 seconds doing that, but he had such a lead on Andrew Neri that he still is in that first place position. I'm sure a little bit less confident, a little bit more spooked. Meanwhile, Paul Boyle really hunting down Neri as he saw Neri lock up in Moss. We don't see the LMP3s lock up all that often.
Not in that corner, because by the time you get to the second part of Moss, you're already slowed way down.
This was Jeff McDonald, not on the same lap as Terry Kiger Jr. there, and oh my goodness!
Oof.
Oh,
Oof.
That was so close. Nothing Terry could do there to avoid it if it were to happen, but that was inches away.
Oh.
No damage to the car. I wanted to take a look at this incident from Terry's view. That is how close they were.
I think if Terry knew how close that really was, he'd be a little bit panicked.
So, Terry Kiger Jr., still in second place, quite luckily, as he makes his way through that. And Jeff McDonald just having an incident there on those new tires. I believe he came in to take tires on that pit stop. So cold tires giving drivers problems again, as we've seen throughout this whole season.
Clayton Corner's just so fast on new tires. You really do kind of have to back off a little bit until they get up to temp. You don't really have a choice going through that fast of a corner.
Berquist inserting himself into the conversation for these positions as Foreman unable to get around Chris Newby. It took Claybaugh a very long time to make that pass, and now Foreman seeming to have the same sort of difficulty as Claybaugh starts to pull away. He's got about 2 seconds on Foreman or on Newby behind. Meanwhile, in the LMP3 class, that Paul Boyle car that we've seen catching up to Andrew Neri just put in a 1:10.8. blowing everybody's fastest lap or last lap out of the waters. He's easily the fastest guy on track right now.
Scary thing is he did that in traffic.
Yeah, he's been behind Neri this entire time and still able to put in a steaming lap like that. So we'll keep an eye on Paul Boyle and see. Of course, with that incident from Paletti, that brings Paletti back into a little bit more of a fight if Paul Boyle is able to continue this kind of speed.
He's got to get around Neri first, though, and that's not going to be easy. I mean, he's had 36 minutes to try and get it done, and it hasn't really been going his way.
Yeah, we saw at the start of this race, Paletti struggling to get... Oh, and Paletti, they're into the pits as well. But Paletti struggled to get around Neri, who's into the pits as well. And now Paul Boyle not having to deal with that. So let's see on this different strategy what kind of pace Paul Boyle is able to do in this clean air.
Yeah, he's got nobody ahead of him. He should be able to put out a ripper.
Yeah, last lap a little bit slow. Not sure if there was anything that happened. I mean, he was about as fast. I think he got slowed down there in that final section as we saw Neri peel into the pits, because it is a pit entry that's really just off the racing line.
Yeah, it's at the worst possible spot. You're coming out of that fast left-hand corner, and then you got to jut all the way over to the right and get it woed up enough to go through that little kink pit entry. It's just a super difficult pit entrance here.
And speaking of worst possible time, that right there is the worst possible place to catch some traffic. And Paul Boyle, unfortunately, catching up to a GT3 there and losing a good amount of time there, I would imagine, in that Moss corner as he just had to follow behind. Pretty much every LMP3 now into the pits, with the exception of Paul Boyle here. So imagine we see him coming in this lap. So, yeah, he's going to peel in. So let's see where this puts him at the end. Nearly off track as he makes his way in. Gets it slowed down, but that's going to be a little bit more lost time as well. Unfortunately, it looks like this extra lap has kind of hurt him a little bit.
Yeah, that pit entry, like I said, it's so difficult to maintain control and get in there fast.
This is Tyler Langenberg through Moss and hits the grass on the outside, just on the entry.
That's so rough.
Luckily, no damage, but a lot of lost time there, and slipping down past Andrew McMurray down into fourth place. As we see Paul Boyle here, let's see where this puts him in the LMP3 battle. Ryan Jeevan makes his way through, as I don't think Ryan Jeevan has made the pit stop yet. Paletti's already passed. Let's see where this puts Neri. Paul Boyle getting up to speed. He's going to be ahead of Andrew Neri, it looks like. Yeah, that's Andrew Neri way back there in the background. So I don't know what happened to Andrew Neri on his outlaps, but Paul Boyle has made up that spot easily, despite the stuff that happened to him on that last lap.
Yeah, he got a nice little gain off of that. Now he needs to just get his head down and focus on catching Nick.
Yeah, even the gap to Nick, only 3.5 seconds, seems like that's a little bit lower than it was before the pit stop. So not such a bad result there after all for Paul Boyle, as he's slowly trying to get these tires up to temperature through these corners, and he's already made his way through the toughest parts so far that we've seen on outlaps, and he's going to just continue getting faster through this phase.
Yep, he's got a little bit of time to get those tires warmed up, but we're going to see the pace.
That was Christopher Craig there spinning in Moss. Aaron Claybaugh able to get around Garcia as a result of the chaos. So taking advantage of that, and Christopher Craig, hopefully no damage involved from that incident.
It looked like he kind of lost it out there on the outside of the corner.
He's got some damage to the front left. May have been collision with another car. Let's see if we get a view of just this incident here. Again, as it's into Moss corner.
Oh, yeah, contact.
So just that that little ding by Vihil shouldn't do anything too massively to either driver, but it is absolutely, that is definitely a collision worthy of incident points, and that's going to affect their safety point score at the end of this race, as that should be a 4X for both drivers, I would imagine.
Yeah, the safety points, you know, they count for so much at the end of the season. It's so important to hang on to those as best you can.
You know, I was wrong earlier. Ryan Jeevan has made a pit stop. So Jeevan right now is in first place. Now, he is on a totally different strategy. He pit 12 laps in as opposed to most of the other drivers taking that full 30. So I don't know if this takes him out of the strategy or not. I mean, if we 30 laps, that put him just, you know, past the, he may be on strategy in the lead as well.
I think the real question is, Zach, are they going to have to do a splash at the end, or will the second stop be all it takes? Because if he got his splash out of the way early, he could take a full second stop and just be done for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I don't know if he planned to take the splash and dash earlier, but it does look, I mean, just trying to do that mental math there, it does look like that would be in the strategy, because we saw them go nearly 40 minutes. That's going to be close. I think that this is going to be close as far as taking it to the end. So we'll keep our eye on that, but it's going to take a while before we really see how that pans out.
It's a gamble, that's for sure.
James Foreman here, still close to Chris Newby, still has not been able to make that move as some lapping LMP3 traffic makes their way through. That's Christopher Craig up there trying to get back up to speed as he's made his way past the couple, and a couple drivers now behind him as he gets out of the way for one. Dale Plotis and Zach Nurnberger is a little bit further back.
Well, we did see that, you know, Newby is a pretty unflinching fella. You know, he's not going to easily succumb to any kind of pressure from behind. Yeah, James Foreman, he's going to have to earn that position.
Yeah, he's really lost some gap that he had there due to the lapping car of Daniel Plotis. Plotis still not around Newby as they make their way through this final section. It's really difficult for LMP3 to make their way through, I think, in some of these final corners. And still struggling to make his way around. It should help Foreman catch up a little bit.
Well, now Zach's going to get in the mix.
And notice him just the last second there. Daniel Plotis still not around. And this is actually for position between these two LMP3 drivers of Plotis and Nurnberger. That is now down to 4/10 as they're battling for 7th and 8th in class. So it's calmed down a little bit for the drivers as we see most of the drivers kind of maintaining their position, and some of the gaps. I mean, especially if you look at the GT3 field, all of the top 5 guys no closer than 5 seconds to the guy in front of them. Ken Hubert continues to pull away at the and that was Garcia. Vihil losing positions, was in 6th place. I was looking at the numbers right as that happened. Let's take another look. Different angle. What happened here for Vihil? I just don't think that he saw the LMP3 at all.
Yeah, he kind of got ganged up on there in the S's there, and he really didn't have anywhere to go. That's a shame. He was having a great race.
Yeah, I was going well for him. I mean, at the very least, the best place to have a crash where you got to get a repair is right at the end of the track. So able to get the car going again. Going to come in and immediately get that car repaired, but not an opportune time, really, I don't think, for a pit stop, as we haven't seen really most of the GT3 field, and we are, closing in on halfway. This very well could be a single stop. We only saw Tyler Langenberg do it last race, a couple weeks ago, but it's shaping up like we're going to see a lot of guys do it. But Vishwasham up to 5th, but right here, Garcia looks like he's going to be just short of that now.
Yeah, the extra pit stop isn't really what you want to do, but I mean, if you got no choice, you got no choice.
So it looks like Garcia may actually be out of this race. I don't see. Yeah, he's out of this race. So potentially didn't have his fast repair turned on, or he knew that the strategy was off. But he is out here.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Ryan Jeevan here continues to lead at the front, and I mean he's consistently been faster than Nicholas Paletti on most of these laps. Previous lap was 2 seconds faster. This lap here was a 13.1, and Nicholas Paletti's lap was a 13.3 there. So he's still faster at this section of the race, and it's looking pretty good for him as long as he's actually able to make it to the end on the fuel.
We saw it last week when Zach was running those consistent laps at Watkins Glen. They weren't the fastest, but they were just enough to keep him out front. Now, if Ryan here can do that same kind of strategy where he can stay in the clean air, he can run consistent laps, maybe not necessarily fast ones, he's got a real chance of bringing this race home tonight.
Yeah, it was an interesting result. There we see a lot of the GT3 guys coming in for their pit stops. We're just past that halfway mark with a 90-minute race. We're at 46.5 minutes, and Langenberg, Calgren, McMurray, and Claybaugh all into the pits as far as at the front of the field. But still, Huber and Foreman able to stick it out and take it another lap longer. So we'll see how that pays off for him at the end of this race. But it does look like you're going to be able to go on a one-stop here.
Yeah, I don't know how Ken's been able to stay out as long as he has with that kind of gap he's had to Terry and Tyler, man. That's amazing.
As he comes into the pits now, would obviously be really surprising if he's able to go 2 more laps longer than everybody else. But takes it a lap longer and had already a pretty strong gap of, I think at the time, was 13 or 14 seconds. So as he comes up in the air to take those tires and get his fuel, interested to see where he comes out here. James Foreman back in second place, I would imagine, coming into the pits as well. Indeed he is. There he is. So Terry right now hoping that he can maybe catch up a little bit to Ken Huber here as Ken Huber's on the exit. And we'll see where this places them all. But this does look like a good time for Huber so far, as Calgare's not even to the final corner yet. We'll see what kind of actual time gap we have. But Huber here dominating the start of this race here halfway through. Some smoke in front of him. Not sure who that was from. But Ken Huber doing quite well in this Ferrari, and we're seeing more and more Ferraris, and not just that. Look at that, we've got 3 in the top 4.
Yeah, it really is good to see that one car isn't the dominant car in this series, because that doesn't really make for fun racing.
Yeah, it was the exciting one because it was new, and really nothing has changed to it. I think it's just people really liked running the new car, and maybe just finding some admirable qualities that they forgot about in some of the other ones. But it is definitely very different from what we saw a couple seasons ago, where BMW and Mercedes really were the 2 strongest. And between those 2 cars combined, I think we have 3 in the GT3 class here today.
And we've seen in the past in iRacing especially that, the cars have strong moments, the cars have weak moments. I remember when the old 911 it would just lose the back end for no reason at random points. Things happen. The cars always have like their advantages and disadvantages, but it's good to see a nice balanced field.
Yeah, we see a lot of cars up and down the field. Doesn't seem like anyone is really giving anyone the advantage. It's just we're seeing a lot of the same names at the top, like we've seen a lot in the past. So, not a surprise to see that there. Right now, we've got 4 drivers again. We see this, we've seen this a lot so far. We have not been able to see the entire GT3 field stay close together, but little pockets have been able to. And wouldn't you believe it? It's Christopher Newby at the front again as he continues his defense on another car. Just has been under attack relentlessly for this entire race as he made up a lot of spots early on, and he's been doing a great job at really making it last as long as possible.
He's got a couple real fast guys behind him in Daniel Rial, who was trying to look on the outside there, and or Richard Curry, excuse me, looking on the outside, and then Daniel Rial. Those guys, they don't play around. They know how to drive.
Yeah, and Rial there with a brand new car as well. No more damage that he had in the front. As a backwards car of James Foreman there, losing all those positions. That he's still struggling to get himself turned around. Luckily, he has a gap of cars behind. He is now back on track. Let's check and see what happened to him there in Moss. What happened before that? Let's see this.
Well, at least he was able to hang on to it. I mean, we've seen it in the P3s. We've seen the other GT3 guys do it. You just get out past the curbing and the dirt there, and that's all she wrote.
He just struggled. Oh, that was really close and nervy. I thought there was a bigger gap than there was. As he really struggled to get it back on track as the car just did not want to move on that dirt and on that grass. We've seen every possible way. Oh, and out wide for Dan Rial. Looks like he's going to be okay, but he's going to lose that spot to Kevin Berquist back on track, trying to get the tires cooled down. We have seen, though, in Moss, pretty much every possible mistake. And Christopher Craig out wide there in turn 2. Zach Nurnberger getting close with Dan Rial as he's able to make up that spot, and that was for position as well. So Nurnberger, obviously, with the early incidents, not just one, but had a couple, but now has moved his way up to 5th place.
Hey, and that's a great comeback drive for Zach. I mean, to have that first lap incident, second lap incident, have to pit because of it, and then drive all the way back up to 5th, that's some good racing right there.
With one battle on track right now, sub 1 second. We're past the halfway mark, past the 50-minute mark. Now's probably a good time to take a couple-minute break. So we will keep the action on screen and be back with you in just a couple minutes. right, and we are back, and we are right in the middle of the action as we just saw Richard Curry avoiding a pretty big moment there, but losing the spot to Newby and then losing the spot to Bergquist as he keeps it close to Bergquist in front. But we actually saw Curry have a near moment in that corner earlier in this race as well.
We did, and then he also fought like hell to get around Christopher Newby. That was a lot of work to lose in just a couple seconds.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people fight pretty hard to get around Christopher Newby today. He finally was able to do it, and then losing that spot, unfortunately, just from a pretty minor error. So he's going to have to start from scratch here. He's still up 4 spots from where he began this race. He started in 12th. He's coming into the pits regardless. So coming into the pits, and that sounded like some tire squeal, potentially from Bergquist. Bergquist may. Oh yeah, but yeah. Okay, so Bergquist. That was a spin. That was more than a squeal. Bergquist losing control there in the final corner, as I could hear his engine revving up, trying to get the car spun back around. So certainly after this pit cycle, we'll see Richard Curry at least ahead of Bergquist here.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning of the race, that turn 10, White's corner, it's just so tricky. You catch too much of that curb on the apex, and that's all she wrote. It'll kick you out to the opposite side of the track or spin you around right in the middle of it. It's just a tricky corner.
Yeah, we've seen a few incidents there so far already from both the GT3 field and the LMP3 field, as it's been a little bit of a difficult one. But what here on this track isn't. And certainly as they head through Moss there, we've seen a lot of incidents in that section of the track.
Moss has been action-packed. It always is. It's a real tight technical corner. You can't see it until the very last minute. Even in a left-hand drive GT3 car, it's still difficult.
Paul Boyle here trying to hunt down Nicholas Paletti, currently the driver in first place, but again, we don't quite know where Ryan Jeevan's strategy puts him, because I guess the idea is that his last pit may have been his final one that he needed to make for the race. So we'll see if that pans out for him here. I mean, we've only got 33 minutes to go, so it's certainly possible.
Did Jeevan take his pit stop? Is that why he dropped those positions?
Yeah, he pitted just a couple laps ago. It looks like there, he had a 31 lap stint there in the middle. So a normal length stint, actually pretty long when we saw a lot of the other LMP3s doing only 30 lap stints.
Yeah, he's going to be kind of cutting it a little close. So I don't know if he can lift and maybe save some fuel. He might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, it does seem, trying to run it, it's going to be really close. So I'm excited to see where it puts him. He can't really afford to save, to be really losing a lot of time in fuel saving either, because he was only, 8 seconds or so ahead of Nicholas Paletti. So even if he's able to make it stretch to the end, he very well could lose the spot just from losing time on fuel strategy. Meanwhile, Paul Boyle here has been trading laps back and forth with Nicholas Paletti, but has absolutely shrunk that gap. I mean, it's sub 3 seconds now between the two. Paletti a slow lap as he makes his way through some traffic with a 1:13.4. We'll see if Paul Boyle is able to get a little bit more fortunate with that timing, making his way around James Foreman right now on the exit of turn 2, and then coming up to Kevin Bergquist, who obviously was fighting pretty hard for a position earlier, but now he has that James Foreman position behind, a little bit confidently held.
Yeah, it looks like Paul's going to get held up going into Moss. He just doesn't have the run.
Hard to see, very difficult to make your way around that, and it's a Larry corner for the GT3s. They can't. It may seem like they're trying to get in the way, or it may not doing enough to get out of the way, but there's nothing. I mean, it is a scary corner to go through, and that's as good as he really could have done. We have an incident, however. Terry Carricker Jr., what happens here? It's down into Moss, I think it looks like.
Not the end of the world.
Oh, that was unfortunate there. Nearly got it going straight.
Oh,
Taps
and the
the
little
wall for good
tap
measure.
at the end, yeah. Ugh.
A lot of time lost for Terry there. Shouldn't have any damage, but We see him down in third as Andrew McMurray now in second place. Again, the driver who is currently 15th in the overall standings is sitting in second place, and that's a real second place as well.
Hey, our local boy's making good. You know, he stayed out of trouble. He's been keeping it cool.
Richard Curry going wide here in that downhill corner, although showing off a little bit of drama as he gets the drift going, and looks like he's able to get it back on track with no damn.
Yeah, it looked like he got on the gas a little bit too much, just trying to get out of the grass.
Yeah, two wheels on the grass will definitely snatch you. We've had a number of incidents over these last couple laps just trying to keep up with them all, but Anjaneri here in Moss just going a little bit too wide.
Yeah, those P3 cars, they really get it the worst in Moss.
Was in third place when that incident happened, still in third place. So did not lose a position during that incident, but has really lost touch of Paul Boyle, who has continued to speed up and manage traffic better than Nicholas Paletti. And that is Paletti there getting massively held up by Chris Newby, and is now it's nearly sub half a second. It is 4/10 between Paul Boyle and Nicholas Paletti right now for the current lead of the LMP3 class. Paletti's going to get by, and Paul Boyle's going to try to follow him. He's going to do so. This is game on for Paul Boyle as he's mastered the traffic, and now these cars are right next to each other.
All right, Paul smells blood in the water. Now he's going to go eat.
Paul Boyle absolutely has had the pace throughout this race, both in traffic and in free air, to keep up with Nicholas Paletti and make that pass. Their fastest laps are just a few hundredths separate. As we see here, pulling up their best lap times, 1:10.824 versus a 1:10.862, and nobody else on their level in that LMP3 class. These are our two fastest drivers on track right now, and they've been the fastest in this race. If they're on the correct fuel strategy ahead of Ryan Jeevan, then it's going to be between these two.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, these guys, you know, Paul and Nick, no one's been able to touch them all race. It's their race to win, but it could, you know, if they get into it with each other too hard, it could be their race to lose too.
Yeah, we do have Zach Nuremberger here also. So incident earlier, a little bit before that, we can check and see what happened, because it looks like the damage must have been pretty heavy as he is retired from this race. So this was the initial incident, I think, that caused the decision. Yeah, and that's what you often expect from that corner when you go out wide. Ken Huber lucky to avoid anything happening there, but LMP3's down 4 drivers now. 3 drivers officially out, and I think Atticus Middleton basically out of this race as well, as he's been stuck in the pits for quite a while.
Yeah, he's been stuck in the pits with no front end. I think his race is over.
Maybe did not have the fast repair clicked, or potentially had used a couple. Foreman there trying to catch up to Kevin Berquist. Really interesting to hear, though, on the audio how much his tires were. It just sounded like they were whining, giving up on him in those corners. And, you know, we're pretty late in the race. These tires are going to be stressed pretty hard. And it sounded like you could even see him on the wheel how gentle he had to be.
There's a few corners in this track, like Moss is kind of one of them. The S's especially, you want to be real comfortable with slipping the car through there at high speed. So a little bit of slip necessarily isn't a bad thing in the S's. It's just you got to be able to keep that drift under control to keep your speed up and not, you know, pick up too much curb and spin out.
Yeah, I'll always remember this was the first track I ever looked up a guide for on iRacing, because for my first race with this league here a long time ago was Canadian Tire, and I remember looking up the guide and them telling me to, in the final corner, do a little bit more throttle to get the car rotated, and it sounded a little bit too scary for me to try at that point. So difficult thing to master, that slip angle using that throttle. You're just, you know, a little bit out of control is the fastest way to be.
And it really is, especially in fast corners like the last two S's there, turn one, turn two's exit. You got to be on the ragged edge.
Yeah, and they look a lot faster outside in this outer view. You can really see kind of how flat they are, just given how much of the track is flat out and just full grip. That part actually ends up feeling like the slow part of the circuit.
Yeah, the exit of Clayton, especially because the banking kind of starts to work with you. You'll feel it in your steering. It'll grip up, and then you're just flat out all the way into Quebec.
It does look like Foreman has caught up here, though, to Bergquist. They made some traffic making their way between those two guys. Now, these two drivers not in the same class. Obviously, they still want those points. A bit of a bad exit there for Foreman. You could hear tires starting to slip, maybe a little bit of that traction control kicking in, and unfortunately, not going to be able to make a move here on this attempt.
No, he's got a little bit more work to do than that.
Ken Huber, meanwhile, for that GT3 field, holds a 22-second lead. Andrew McMurray doing great to be there in second, but Ken Huber showed in practice that he was faster than everybody. His qualifying time, he did qualify in first. It wasn't by as much as he had beat everybody in practice, where it was 5-6 tenths. But that has come back out again to play here in this race and just absolutely dominating.
Yeah, it's a beating is what it is. Ken hasn't seen anybody else since like 10 minutes into the race.
Yeah, it would be a strong result. Last race he won was a few events ago at Sebring. Has had some pretty impressive pace in the open wheel for amateur series as well. Has unfortunately in that series had a couple times been undone by some connection issues or just some early incidents he was unable to avoid. But he's shown some really good pace in a number of cars, but this has been the biggest statement so far for sure.
And while we're speaking of big statements, take a look at Keith Roycroft working himself all the way up to second in the GT3B class. He's been running good, staying out of trouble. I know Keith doesn't really like this track a whole lot, but man, he's having himself a great race, up 9 spots.
Yeah, had to start from the very back as he didn't get a lap time in. And again, not sure the context of that, if he did that on purpose or didn't have time or he wasn't able to get into the session in time. But regardless, having to start from the back and has had a remarkably clean race. I don't think we've seen any incidents that he's been involved in. His car looks fully clean and has 15 seconds ahead to James Foreman with about 20 minutes to go. And depending on the pace he's able to put in here at the end, he could get up there to Foreman, who is fighting pretty heavily with Bergquist and certainly could lose some time during that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with our P3 class, especially, and a couple of our top GT3 guys. A little mistake will cost you a lot of time.
Yeah, for Roycroft certainly showing that just keeping the race clean can do a lot for you here in Canadian Tire. Not as many incidents as I think that maybe I expected coming in. However, still though, just quietly picking his way through the field and keeping that car nice and pristine, puts himself firmly onto the podium and has that outside shot at a potential win if anything were to happen to James Foreman ahead. Terry having potentially some more issues here. This is out in Moss. We saw him spin there earlier, not losing as much time this time, able to get it going again. But understeer is really plaguing a lot of these GT3s right now. For
me personally, one of the things I do not like to do is go wide in Moss like that in the middle. I like to kind of keep it more in the middle of the track there, just for that one reason. Because if you get out in the dirt, it's all over. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, and even further, that's where that crest in the track is. So not only are you risking getting out there in the dirt and grass, but you're also in the you have the least amount of aerodynamic load. You can see right there that crest, and the better thing in my experience has been to get that that turning done early. James Foreman has made the move on Kevin Berquist, has pulled out another position gap to his competitor Keith Roycroft behind as he sends it all the way around the outside. This was side by side, heading in. Very brave move.
Yeah, that's really brave. It's super tough to get around the outside on the first turn of the S's like that. Good move.
So we can see Berquist has stayed close, though, to try to get that spot back, and hasn't done it so far. Again, James Foreman unfortunately missed the first 3 races of the season, so with 2 drop weeks, that's going to be at least as 1-0 that he's going to take. So he currently stands 23rd just because he's only got 1 race, but did pretty well at Watkins Glen. And it's looking to be another good result for him here in Canadian Tire. So we'll see, how he's able to move up the field, going through this race. But he's really unfortunately held back by missing 1 more race than we have drop weeks.
Yeah, that hurts his championship standings. But hey, a win's a win. You got to take them when you can get them.
Andrew McMurray into the pits a little bit early for how long we've seen actually, that is, we thought that a lot of them were going to be able to do it on 1 stop. So either McMurray knows that he's not going to be able to make it, which this does seem a little early to really be making that decision 18 minutes out from the end, or he's unfortunately just off that fuel strategy that it seemed what was going to be, the shape up.
Yeah, I don't think anything happened to him to force him into an extra pit stop. He must know something we obviously don't, and worried about his fuel.
Meanwhile, in that LMP3 field, Paletti, having been pressured for Paul Boyle for quite a while, has started to pull a gap again. Not due to a lack of pace from Paul Boyle, 11.6 on that last lap, but Paletti setting the fastest lap of the race here at the 1 hour 12-minute mark of a 1:10.66. So not a whole lot faster than the previous fastest lap, but they hadn't really been running up near that since earlier in this race. So certainly a response to his teammate behind, and the gap is close to 5 seconds now.
And maybe he was giving Paul, like a glimmer of hope or something before he really turned it on.
You see there in the first sector, Paletti faster, and then we don't have the time yet for Boyle. There we go, slower in the second sector as well. So, and he has now broken that 5-second mark, even though he's dealing with some traffic here. As he makes his way by Keith Roycroft in the final corner, not losing too much time. And yeah, I mean, I'm still very interested to see where Ryan Jeevan is in all this. But Nicholas Paletti may have a fast track to another win here today.
I couldn't help it but wonder about the Jeevan strategy as well. It's going to be tough to see how this works out. We know he's taking his last stop. It was maybe a little bit early. It's going to be hard to tell, if he can make his fuel last, because these guys got to stop, but they're going to take a short stop because all they're going to do is just take a little bit of gas.
Okay, actually, I just realized I was Nick Terrell, or Nicholas Paletti, doing so well in O4A that I was actually getting the 2 series mixed up a little bit. Nicholas Paletti doesn't have a win yet. He has only even 1 podium on the season. He's got a lot of 4th and 5th places. He's stayed in it, but he has not received a win so far this season. So this could be him on for his first win despite 3 pole positions.
Yeah, and those were 3 tough pole positions too. We saw that. We kind of coined the pole sitter curse,
Yeah, obviously a couple incidents we can remember. We saw what happened in Watkins Glen. We saw what happened in Sebring, and certainly fought back to still, get some good points from those races. But and we saw what happened at Daytona as well, down in the turn 1. So it has been a tough season that Paletti has really endured through. But this may be him finally able to get a win here, and we'll see as he's making this last pit stop, and he's on his way out as Angineri slides his way into his box.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Jeevan strategy is going to pay off. He's still a little far back there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like. Well, at least for it's not. It's not going to work out for the win. However, if Jeevan is able to make it to the end without another stop, he should be able to get ahead of Neri, I would think. But it doesn't look like he is. So Jeevan, though, in fourth place, still a strong spot. Qualified there in eighth, and which was last because Atticus Milton didn't put a time in. So qualified at the back of the field and moved his way all the way up into fourth place.
Yep, nice strong finish for Ryan for sure.
So Paul Boyle into the pit lane as well. Was provisional leader for a lap there as he went another extra lap, longer than Paletti. But surely Paletti will retake that lead after this pit stop, and we can see him make his way past Terry Kiger Jr. in the GT3 field, who is back to second place despite a number of incidents that we've seen.
Yeah, but unfortunately, no one's had the answer for Ken. He's just out there blasting the laps out.
Yeah, it's been a pretty remarkable showing as Paletti retakes that first place position. You can see Paul Boyle on the exit of the pits there. Gap still over 4 seconds between the two with 14 minutes remaining. Be a pretty big effort for Paul Boyle to really catch up and take this to Paletti. But Paletti's going to be tires are a little bit cold. He's getting them back up to temperature. But no one's really been as as fast as him when he really puts it all the way down.
Yeah, when he gets it all together, he's pretty much untouchable. All he's got to do is just survive the next, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever's left, and just keep it clean.
Yeah, he's been quite untouchable in the O4A right now. Again, with a drop week calculated after 5 weeks, he is still ahead by 45 points over second place. And that second place is a B-class driver. He is actually 70 points ahead of the next A-class driver in O4A. So you'll have to, of course, forgive me for getting his achievements there a little bit mixed up with how it's gone in E4A so far. Christopher Newby here on the outside of turn. Oh, this is into Moss. And that was Richard Curry in the back as well, I think, reacting to that. Looks like both guys getting away okay. Ooh, that was close for James Foreman. Luckily, seeing it coming, though.
Yeah, it had to be, Curry reacting to Newby. I mean, he was stopped right there in the middle of the course. He had no place to go.
Yeah, so that currently has, Curry was on a different lap, it looks like, from Foreman and Newby, Foreman, and Berquist, but Newby, Foreman, Berquist all together there in 5th, 6th, 7th, and Foreman all the way up in 6th place despite being in that B class. Only his second race in the B class still, and he's got a two position advantage on Keith Roycroft right now.
Well, another thing, despite James's, mild mistakes, he's run a really clean race so far, and it's starting to pay off for him here at the end.
This looks like Richard Curry, they've had another incident. This is same lap. And crash ahead. That was Andrew McMurray.
Oh, that's a shame.
As he's got going pretty quickly down the road there. So let's see what happens to McMurray here.
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah, just without the collision.
Yeah, Curry really hit the tires at full speed, didn't he? God, that had to hurt.
I mean, the car's in pretty decent shape, all things considered. And he did temporarily lose his wing, and then it magically reappeared back on. But that Andrew Murray having taken that pit stop, and that is not going to help his strategy at all, as he's really just crossing his fingers, hoping that everyone else has to make that second pit. But we have not seen really anybody do it. Yeah, we see Richard Curry in the pits, but that's to fix the damage that they just picked up there. So far, haven't seen any of those other guys at the top of the field coming in for that second pit stop.
Maybe they can stretch it to the end. I don't know. It's hard to say.
it seemed like on the timing of the first stop that was the case. And so, yeah, I mean, just interesting how early McMurray decided to come into the pits. But if it was a sure thing, if he was definitely feeling like he wasn't going to be able to make it, then it makes sense on the strategy. So we're still keeping our eyes out for any other drivers at the top coming into the pits, but they may be doing some fuel saving even to just try to make it to the end. Langenberg here, third place as it stands, and he's going out a little bit wide for a little bit of lawn mowing. And well, that's like, oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say that wasn't hard enough to take off body work.
Yeah, that was a tab. He's got some lasting damage to the rear left of the car, but should be all right. But certainly a little bit scary moment there, as over the last few laps we've seen quite a lot of incidents actually between both fields.
Well, and that gave Aaron quite an advantage on him. I mean, Aaron's been running pretty good laps all night long here. You know, it might give him the opportunity to get that final step on the podium.
Yeah, he looks all over him, and the rear left of that car of Langenberg looks worse here from Claybaugh's view than it did from some of the external cams. You can really see that tire exposed, so you don't know if that's just some crumpled back bodywork, not such a big deal. If that's the actual tire geometry, then that may explain why Claybaugh is all over the back of his car, but still hasn't been able to make that move yet.
Well, Tyler's not going to give up anything easy, that's for sure. Aaron's going to have his work cut out for him.
And you would think that, again, if the idea was that he had to take another stop, that Langenberg would have already come in. That if if the idea was that there needs to be a splash and dash, that given the damage he had on that car, you know, even though it's kind of minor, that he would have used that fast repair right now. So I have to think that the plan is to go to the end here.
It's got to be. I mean, there's no reason to stay out, you know, with that kind of damage if you got the fast repair and you have to stop, and you have to stop. There's just, you know, I would have took that repair and tried to get my pace back.
So we should expect to see this go to the end here. And certainly this battle may go to the end as well. Claybaugh just not really finding a spot here. He seems to be fast, but not in really the places to make a move. Langenberg may shade defensive here into turn one, and he does so. He pulls to the inside, preventing Claybaugh from sending one real deep down, but he's not trying to make a move quite yet.
Well, I think what Aaron's going to have to do, Zach, is he's going to have to line him up at Moss and get him on that straightaway, and then take him down in the S's where he is visibly faster than Tyler.
Yeah, we have not seen a whole lot of effectiveness from the draft, so a lot of it is going to have to come from that exit, which to have a really good exit, you've kind of got to have some space in front of you. It's the catch-22 that you have, unfortunately.
He's on him, though. Let's see what he can do.
See down the straight, Claybaugh trying to chase him down, catching up slowly here. Certainly Langenberg, I would imagine, trying to keep the right side of the track here. He does not want Claybaugh to take the inside. Gonna force him around the outside. He's not quite there to really challenge now as they make their way through the corner. Claybaugh maybe for a switchback. It's just not going to work out here on this attempt.
Nope, he didn't quite have the run, did he?
Christopher Newby, large incident for him here, losing nearly 20 seconds as he goes off real early in turn two.
Ooh.
And just stops.
Yeah, well, that lifted up off the ground.
Yeah. Oh, and that front right tire is done too. I'm not sure he's able to make it back to the track. I think he sits here maybe 20 seconds and then he tows. Yeah. Toe to the pits, unfortunate for Christopher Newby. Has had a really strong race and had a lot of great defensive highlights, but with just about 5 minutes to go, unfortunately, really big incident now sending him to the back of the field.
That's tough for Mr. Newby. I mean, he had such a good night tonight.
Yeah, you can see there from our retirements, what was not showing up in the first couple laps has really started to precipitate here. Was the theory, the prediction that this was going to be a bit of a meat grinder, and late in this race it has been, as we now have 13th back in the GT3s, 13th through 18th, all out of this race. Richard Curry a few laps back, and Newby we just saw he's currently towing. And then in the LMP3s, 6th through 9th are out of this race as well. Claybaugh again close, but just not in the right spot. It just seems like he's struggling to get a run down that back straight. Maybe it's just the exit that Langenberg is nailing on Moss. Potentially a little bit better top speed in the Porsche as well.
Two, I think, Tyler has probably taken care of his tires, to be able to keep his speeds up. I mean, we've seen it all night long where these GT3 guys specifically, once they get locked up like this, it's so hard to get around each other, and it's a perfect case of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, they have a couple more hard braking zones at the track they're heading to next in Road America, but there actually are a good amount of similarities between the tracks, despite not really being similarly sized at all. There are some similarities to the kinds of stresses that the tires go through, so there's a lot of things that these drivers can learn from this race, even if it hasn't gone well for them.
Yeah, indeed, and it really comes down to experience. That's why we always see the same guys up front, week in, week out. These guys, they've been here before. They know what to do. They know kind of what to expect, and they go out and get it done.
Claybaugh just trying to put his car somewhere where he has, gets to earn some room, but just doesn't have the drive to get side by side yet. He's able to stay behind. He's able to cling to the back, but it's just not been the spots where he needs, where he's catching up. He's catching up in the middle of the tight corners, and there's just nowhere to go. It looks like may have been I think maybe Jeff McDonald may be spinning there. Yeah.
Oh, that was a hard end.
It's unfortunately been a bit of a difficult race for Jeff McDonald. So he got the car going again, and I don't know how the car isn't. He hit a concrete wall. The car looks fine. And that's him right there. So I think he's got some damage because he was not that close when we last moved over. So he's going to move out of the way as he's on a different lap from these guys. As this battle continues with 2 minutes to go in this race, it's probably just 2 laps more for Claybaugh to make a move. And this is as close as he's been. He's going to be able to earn some room down the inside into turn 1.
He's going.
Sending it down the inside. He doesn't quite have the drive. Tyler Langenberg keeps it around the outside. We have not seen the outside work very often, but he kept it as close as he possibly could.
The pressure's got to be getting to him after a while. I mean, Aaron's been all over him for the last few laps.
Yeah, it was a wonderful defense, but he has another attack that he has to fight off here. Is this going to go side by side into Moss? Claybaugh not quite close enough to earn the room, and again having to back out of it. Nearly come into each other there, as now they have to kind of slow down through this. Let's see who has the better exit. Looked about even there from that little clip. Yeah. Claybaugh gonna fight back again.
Yeah, it looked like a dead heat coming out of Moss there, didn't it?
He's getting the use of that draft. As soon as he pulls out, he's going to stall out a little bit. Again, Langenberg keen to take the inside, force Claybaugh around the outside. We haven't seen many people able to do it, but he's going to be the inside of the next corner. He is ahead. Tyler Langenberg can't fight it back any longer. Aaron Claybaugh is on the podium in 3rd place with 1 lap to go.
Oh, man, that was great. Aaron just sent it.
There's the white flag waving, and I think that Claybaugh should be able to maintain this. I mean, we saw him so able to stick to the back of Langenberg. If he doesn't make a mistake, this should be a podium finish for him here just after getting a race win a couple weeks ago.
Oh, we lost Tyler. We couldn't see it on the screen.
Oh, yep. Yep, in the background there. Yeah, interesting. It looks like maybe he caught the grass and then a little bit of aero wash. And
yeah, it looked like the car was really unloaded and bounced a little bit and then caught it. Well, Aaron's got 3rd in the bag, that's for sure.
As we we follow Ken Huber here. He is absolutely leading this race. Got a 23-second gap on Terry Calgary Jr. behind. Meanwhile, Nicholas Paletti here nearly finishing this lap as he is going to come across the line as our race winner in LMP3. First race win of the season, only a second podium. Checkered flag comes out. Nicholas Paletti is your champion at Motorsport in the LMP3 as he does a little bit of a celebration weave. Paul Boyle gave him everything he could, but comes across back in second place, and Daniel Plotis crossing right behind him. Andrew Neri looking like he is going to come across in third, fought some potential connection issues, and still finishing on the podium today in a very difficult race. Tyler Langenberg on a different lap finishes in fourth, as now those podium positions in the top three are secured. James Foreman crosses as your winner for the B class in fifth overall, looking like his next competitor, Keith Roycroft, going to be coming across in eighth. However, up 10 positions. Both those B-class guys making up tons of spots. Ken Huber crossed the line as your victor. 22-second gap to Terry Calgary Jr. behind. Terry still finishing out this lap here as he rounds the final corner. Even had a purple sector 1 here on this final lap, and puts in a strong final lap and comes across in second place with the fastest lap of the race. That's a Terry Calgary special.
Great racing tonight by all our drivers, especially from Aaron there and Nick. And, oh, man, what an exciting race.
I love this track. I love it for a reason, and we had some really great racing today, and certainly gave the drivers plenty of a challenge. Aaron Claybaugh coming across the line in third place, and that is everybody in this race finished. Oh, man. All right, let's take a look at the official results of our race today. In the LMP3 class, race winner, Nicholas Paletti, for the first time on the season, 4.9 seconds back his teammate Paul Boyle in Doge Squad Racing. Andrew Neri rounding out the podium. Ryan Jeevan comes across in fourth place, and Daniel Plotis in fifth. And of the drivers not finishing in order, Zach Nurnberger, Christopher Craig, Atticus Middleton, and Don McCloy.
Finishing up our GT3 field, we got Ken Huber with another win, followed by Terry Calgary Jr., and rounding out the GT3A podium with Aaron Claybaugh with that penultimate lap pass on Tyler Langenberg. And then we got James Foreman, our GT3B class winner, who ran a nice race, had a good race tonight, got himself a win. Hats off to him. Followed by second place, Keith Roycroft, who also had a great race, starting all the way at the back of the GT3 field to work his way up to eighth overall and second in class.
And I do have a note here, driver, that we didn't have finish, and I'll tell you why. Abhi Vishwasham, who we saw at one point, was running up there in fifth place. We never saw a crash or any incident. He came into his pits. He went a little bit past his pit box. He missed his box, went in the reverse, and got disqualified from the iRacing session for driving backwards. Oh. So such an unfortunate penalty to have.
Rough.
Yeah, was having a really good race.
Well, should we get our LMP3 winner, Nick Paletti, in here? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. First time winner on the season.
For GT.
Nick Paletti, what's going on, man? It's Skip and Zach. You got us?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Nick, you had kind of a quiet race, but it wasn't. Tell us how the race went for you tonight.
Yeah, that race was not quiet at all. That was intense. I'm a little sore after that one. I guess change of mentality a little bit for this race instead of focusing on qualifying, which seemed to not work for me. In the last few races, I ran a full stint in practice and found some really good pace on the long run. So led to not qualifying very well, but it was fun. It was, good battles, and once we hit the long run pace, I was able to build those gaps.
It seemed like you had some real issues. I mean, not just you, of course. Everybody had some real issues with making some passes on this track. Not any hard braking zones to make the move. So, what did you learn in those first few laps before you were able to really make a couple passes to make those really important ones later on in the race?
You had to get a good run out of the hairpin. That was the only place you get a decent pass. Is you could get a run out of there on a P3 at least. That was the only place you could get a pass done. So it was all about just making sure you hit that apex as late as you can and just floor it. And that's how I got. I think both. I think that's how I got both Neri and Craig in the first few laps, but that was the only place. I tried a few moves in some other spots, but it just didn't work. I mean, even with GT3s, I mean, I'm sure you saw my adventure in the grass, but there were some moves there that were real sketch if you tried them.
So let's go back to qualifying for a minute. Is pole position for the P3 class cursed?
I mean, that's what we were saying. I mean, it has to be. I guess because every time I've been on pole, I've crashed within the first two laps, and then poor Zach went in and did the exact same thing. I think it just depends on where you put your effort into. If you're putting it a lot into that quali pace, it's hard to know where the tires are going to go with race. So you can't push it like you do in quali on the first few laps, or you just wreck. It just is. This car is so sensitive to tires, especially on the front. So if you try to catch it, you're going to lock the rears and around you go. And I've done that far too many times this season. So I feel for Zach.
Well, Megan, congratulations! Not just on the race win in the vacuum, of course, her first win on the season in O4A or in E4A. Over-A has gone a little bit differently, but coming into this race, 7 points separating you in fifth and Zach in first. And I mean, we saw Zach Nuremberger got hit by the curse. Brad McCombs wasn't here. Nick Terrell wasn't here, and Don McCloy out of the race early. So I mean, it could have gone. Tonight went just about as well as it could possibly gone for you.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen with the championship. I mean, it's just these cars, it's just such a toss up on who's going to be fast. Because, I mean, the guys who are fast, we make mistakes. And then you get, not to say that Zach's slow, but Zach, it definitely seems to have the consistency over a stint. So he's been able to get those consistent finishes. But now he found some pace today and then got struck with the same one as us. So I think it'll go down to the last race this season. So I'm real excited.
Well, we're looking forward to your performance in these last couple races, and we certainly wish you some luck, Nick. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for the broadcast. You guys are great.
Appreciate it. That was our race winner there, Nicholas Paletti, first win on the season, and victor here at Mosport for the LMP3s.
Let's go ahead and grab our GT3B winner, James Foreman. James, it's Skip and Zach in the booth. You got us?
Yeah, how's it going?
Excellent. Hey, that was a pretty good race you had. Were you worried at all when Curry got ahead of you guys and was out there for a little bit?
Oh yeah, especially when your tires started overheating or starting to lose traction. It was pretty scary out there. But I lost it in the hairpin corner. Went back a bunch of places and kind of put my head down and made some places up.
Yeah, we saw a few drivers have an incident there. I mean, I guess more than a few. Pretty much every GT3 driver had an incident there at some point, although you had unfortunately got completely spun back around backwards. And, you've been pressuring or under pressure another driver during this entire race. What kind of mental fatigue did this race have on you?
Oh, it really wears you down, especially when you're battling with a bunch of people. I had Chris Newby in front of me. I was trying to pass him a whole bunch of times, and then I think I went in the pits, and then I got ahead of him, and I was like, "Woohoo! I got ahead!" And I'm like, "Oh no, I got to start all over again."
So let's talk a little bit. You run the Ferrari pretty regularly. How did the Ferrari do here? Because the GT3A winner, Ken Huber, also is in the Ferrari. And I was kind of wondering, did you get a lot of straightaway speed out of the car? Was it just really hooked up? How did it do for you tonight?
I felt like in the high-speed corners, it really hooks up really well on there. And then also the straightaway speed, I was catching up. The Porsche, I could catch up to him pretty good on the straights. But it seemed to handle really well around the high-speed corners, where quite a few of those on here.
Well, we're 5 races into the season, and you have now given us our 5th different GT3B winner out of 5 races. So congratulations on the performance in what's been a pretty competitive class.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So with Road America and Road Atlanta being our next couple races coming up, what are you looking forward to that? And do you think that you're going to have a couple good races here in this season that you started a little late?
I think, Road America, I think last season I won that race, so I seem to do pretty good there. And I really love Road Atlanta. So hopefully I'll do good on the next 2 races. Fingers crossed. But I really like those tracks, so it should be a good way to end the season.
Looking forward to it. And again, congratulations on that win, James. You have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
That was our GT3B winner, James Foreman, in just his 2nd race of the season.
Well, now we probably ought to talk to our GT3A winner, Ken Huber, huh?
Absolutely.
Ken, it's Skip and Zach in the booth. You got us?
Hey, Skip. Hey, Zach. How's it going?
Excellent, man. Talk about a beatdown. You dominated the race tonight. How did you do it?
Well, hats off to Terry for that 2nd place finish. He was running strong. I was just telling Terry that, if I considered any track in iRacing a home track, this would be the one. I don't really have a home track where I live out here in Montana, but I have a lot of seat time here, so I have a lot of experience, so I can get around this place pretty good normally.
Now, what was your experience with the tire wear? Just because there's a lot of corners here that really put a lot of stress on those tires, and I know you get to change them every pit stop, but were you starting to really feel it when you're coming to the end of a fuel stint?
Not too much, but I can tell you that there is quite a bit of tire wear. You're almost down to half strength on your tires when you come in for pits, but at least in the Ferrari, when the Ferrari gets light on the fuel load, that kind of makes up for the difference in tires. So didn't really affect too much. You just gotta mind your P's and Q's, especially in the S's before you come on the straight stretch, because the car gets a little free in there. But other than that, no, not really a big deal. Just you're going to take tires on the pit stop. I heard somebody in there, can't remember who it was, but somebody didn't take tires. I think it was Andrew McMurray, might have not taken tires, and he paid the price, I think, with a meatball.
Oh, so we were trying to figure out why he had made a 2nd stop. That would explain it. So no tires in that first stop, and gets the meatball. So you're helping us investigate and solve a couple of mysteries we couldn't solve.
Listen to the chat. I just kind of figured that out. Anyway, a big congrats to both Terry and Aaron and Nicholas Bloody for the win in the LMP. I believe he got the win out there, right?
He did.
He did, yes.
Yeah, so that was a good run for those guys. Like I said, they met me at my home track, and it feels good to finally get a win in the GT3 series. I guess this is my 2nd one, but it's always feels good getting ahead of Terry there. We were just chatting about that.
So speaking of wins, we missed you at the Glen a couple of weeks ago. How are you feeling about Road America in a couple more weeks?
Yeah, Road America is a good track. I like Road Atlanta and Road America. Probably Road Atlanta a little bit more. I think those are the next 2 tracks are coming up, as I understand it. But
yeah, the last 2, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I should be pretty competitive, it provided my internet connection holds up.
Yeah, I know, for it's given you a couple issues, but now you got 2 wins on the season here, for in the GT3 class. So you'll be certainly shooting up those standings some more, and we look forward to hearing from you again in these last couple events.
Hey, thank you guys.
Have a good night, Ken.
You too.
And that was our overall GT3 winner, Ken Huber, there for GT3A with the 2nd win on the season. Again, fantastic race that we had here tonight at Motorsport. It's a track that is well known by the league. Used to be a regular season opener, and it always provides such great action. It's a great challenge, and it certainly was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, it was a great race tonight for sure.
So, again, if you are here for the E4A, you can see us again in a couple weeks at Road America. Don't want to get the 2 confused. Road America as our penultimate round for E4A. If you're here for both E4A and O4A, next week will be the penultimate round of O4A at Barcelona Historic. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you next week.